Hi, welcome to Elk's Floaty Guide Service. I want to talk to you about my spring crankbait and jerkbait selections that I like to use every year, day in, day out. Real simple, we'll start with the line. I use either Vicious Pro Elite fluorocarbon, 14 to 20 pound. 14 is my go-to size. If I'm not going to use fluorocarbon, I'll use Vicious Mono. There's a couple of reasons I'll use one over the other. Fluorocarbon is heavy, so it will sink. It will drag your baits down a little bit deeper. Mono tends to float a little bit more. Your baits will run a little higher in the water column. So depending on where you are, you might want to use fluorocarbon versus mono. They both have enough stretch so that if you don't have a crankbait rod, you can get away with fishing crankbaits on a jig rod, a spinning rod, whatever you need. I recommend a crankbait rod, which is a nice soft parabolic motion to it. I like to swap out all my treble hooks with the Daiichi Death Trebles, world's sharpest hooks. My favorite brand of hooks. I've been with them for a long time. I don't trust any other type of hooks. I either use their trebles or their worm hooks exclusively. Selection now. A couple different style jerkbaits I like to use. One is the Mega Bass jerkbait, high-end product. A little bit too pricey for some people, but they do work extremely well. This is the full-size version. If they're finicky or picky, what I'll tend to do is I'll go down to the next size version. This would be a Lucky Strike RC Rick Cleanse series, which is a quarter of the price of the Mega Bass, but they're a great product. They work well. So there's two different versions you can get that I recommend would be the Mega Bass or the Lucky Strike RC series. And then another product line that I do very well with and I like a lot are the Yo-Zuri jerkbaits. Yo-Zuri has a real nice high-end paint job to it. This happens to be a Fire Tiger version. I like to use this in stained water, dirty water, or when the fish are real aggressive, sometimes you elicit some violent strikes with a real bright color. Jerkbaits are great when they're finicky, overcast, you got fronts coming in, they're not too sure they want to eat, they're following your crankbaits quite a bit. Jerkbait gives you that option to stop and pause it and let it sit there, and the bass will come in and kind of mouth it and nose into it, and then a lot of times you'll hook them on the back hook. That's why it's good, important to have extremely sharp treble hooks on your jerkbaits, crankbaits, and rattle traps. Your lipless versions, this happens to be a Spro lipless crankbait, and then this is Yo-Zuri. These are my two favorite versions and my two favorite colors. Rattle traps, lipless, they're all the same to me. I deem everything a rattle trap almost. It's just, I've been fishing so long, rattle trap is the original lipless crankbait, so I tend to call them all that. But lipless crankbaits, vibe baits, people call them different things, but they're all a rattle style bait. I like the Yo-Zuris. They don't sink like a rock, they cast a mile, they got a good vibration and a good sound. The Spro is a great product as well. Good sound, different than the Yo-Zuri, but excellent product. Obviously it's shaped like a shad. I'll steady retrieve, I'll yo-yo, I'll let them sit on the bottom, I'll hop them aggressively. If you're in some weeds, let them take the surface of the weeds, rip them through the weeds type stuff. Very effective bait in the spring. I'll start fishing rattle traps. The water is about 45 degrees on up throughout the spawn. Switching over to the crankbait side of things, there's two of my favorite versions of crankbaits I like to use. One is the Rapala DT4. This thing is like an all-terrain vehicle. It comes through sticks, wood, weeds, you name it. You can pretty much work it through anything. It comes through nicely. And the nice thing about these is they come standard floating, but if you take the front belly hook off and you replace it with a size 4 or even a size 2 hook, depending on how much you want it to float or sink, you can make this suspend or sink ever so slightly. Gives it a different look, different action, catches a lot of fish that way. It's very compact, but weighs almost close to 3/8 to a ½ ounce. It casts a mile. Again, small profile, great springtime bait. Another bait that I like, square bill. Most people use square bills in springtime when you're fishing shallow because square bill helps deflect efficiently and effectively off logs and rocks and whatnot. The RC series by Lucky Strike. It's another Rick Cleanse series. They're relatively cheap. They're like $6. Walmart sells them to Field and Stream, to Dick's, to Gander Mountain. Any of your major outlet stores will have these. Every Walmart I've ever been in has these on the shelf. Great wiggle, great bait. Again, they normally float, but if you change the belly hook to the next size bigger, they will suspend. So it gives you a little alteration there. And then, obviously, they're bright colors, shad pattern, bright colors, bluegill colors, all work in the springtime. And then, if I'm going to fish a little bit deeper, prior to the spawn, post-spawn, pre-spawn, rocky areas, maybe 6 to 15 feet deep. I'll either use a wiggle wart or the live target craw imitation. These are my two favorite style baits. They tend to hunt a little bit. They're not a direct straight wiggle, stay on line with everything. They kind of swim off to the sides, and especially when you hit the rocks, they flare off real nice. The live target suspends, it sits there real nice, has nice hooks on it. I still change them out though to Daiichi. The wiggle warts, they come with the cheaper Mustad hooks. I always change these out. Again, you put the next size belly hook up on the front. It'll tend to sit a little longer or almost suspend. The only problem is with these, because the bait is so short, if you do put a bigger hook on, sometimes the back hook tangles on the front hook. But other than that, if you stumble through that, you work through it. The bait has a good action and tends to sit down on the bottom a little bit better. But that is my standard crankbait, lipless and jerkbait selection, my line selection, my hook selection that I use every spring, day in, day out. I use the same styles every year, no matter what lake I'm on in New York. They work great. These baits and selections will also work down south, Florida, North Carolina, Tennessee. They all work. This is your standard springtime, but at the same time, these same baits work in the summertime and even in the fall. Get out there, give it a try. Remember, Elk Loaded Guide Service. Look me up on Facebook. Thank you.